So everybody, listen for a second. My name is Tom Trong. My wife and I, Marissa and I, came here from Boston, Massachusetts. We're so glad to be here with you, right? Here in Los Angeles, and I want to thank Rodrigo for putting this event together. Right? For inviting everyone here tonight. About a year ago, I was speaking to our business partners and our team, and we were doing events locally and then some regionally about helping agents become more successful. And I had this idea, hey, why don't we come together and ask the real estate community, not just people in our organization, but people from competing organizations, to basically come together and help agents become more successful. The industry is tough enough, isn't it? Low inventory, interest rates going high, buyer bidding wars right after left. Financing might be a challenge for folks, and agents who are crushing it generally don't like to share their secrets, especially in their backyard. Because when they share their secrets in their backyard, what happens? They're training their own competition, right? So I had this idea, hey, let's help agents make their first million in real estate. And that's the event tonight, right? Today is the 12th event that we've had in less than a year. Okay? We've been all across the country, from Massachusetts to the West Coast, north to south, all across. Last week, we were in Texas, and we did the Texas Dash. Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, city after city after city. And in the room were the best of the best in the industry who came out and gave of themselves to teach fellow agents, fellow professionals, to reach their first million in real estate. So some of you might be sitting back and thinking, well, what is a million in real estate? A million in real estate, if you're brand new in the business, might be your first closing for $1 million. A million for others might be a first million in my pocket, in my savings account, okay? Somebody else might say, I want to make my first million so I can give it all away. Okay, so wherever you are in life, hopefully Rodrigo, the speakers tonight will pour into you and share with you secrets, share with you what they've done to make their first million, whatever that million is. And afterwards, hopefully you guys connect with one another, learn from one another. The whole purpose of this is for agents to come together to help each other become better so that we can do well and that we can do good for our community. That's it. Thank you very much. I want to thank you, Rodrigo, for leading the way. And I called him to ask him to do an event. He goes, I want to do it. Audra says, we don't have enough time. And I said, I know you can do it, and you will pull it together, and you sold out. Thank you.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah? All right. So I'm Clara Hernandez. I work at Fox. I work in digital marketing and advertising, which really just means, if you've seen an ad, I've probably been behind it. And some of the work that I do is the technology that's behind the advertising, all of the software development that it takes to run ads today compared to where we've been. So I'll talk a little bit about that today. I wanted to go over quickly what we started off with in marketing. You guys are pretty familiar with what you've seen different ads like flyers, billboards, TV ads, commercials, and then even website ads. The very first time you've been on any website, when I don't know, maybe the first like AOL.com, right? The first time you saw a box on AOL.com that was like promoting some other company other than AOL, that was the first website ad. And that's the first foray into digital advertising. Digital advertising is where you start to get even more personalized in a kind of scary way. And they'll be able to target you at a cheaper rate than paying for billboards, for flyers. And today, what that's grown into is actually, out of all the advertising globally, 33% of it now makes up and is comprised of social media advertising. That's large brands, that's small brands. So a lot of money is going into social media advertising. I think the question is why, and how much should you put in? And what does the climate look like, right? We're going through inflation, we're going through a war. How does that affect digital advertising and marketing today? And the different brands and how much they're spending. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we'll talk about the different options for social media marketing, the costs, and how you efficiently and effectively use social media marketing today. So you know, I'm sure you guys have at least one of these social media platforms, right? They're very engaging. That's the difference between what you saw before, flyers, billboards, even commercials. Commercials, what's an example? 1-800-CONTACTS, right? That's a jingle that stays in your mind, but it's not really relevant to you if you don't wear contacts. You can't really interact with it. So you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But it's very, very interactive, and that's why it's so effective. But if you look at the landscape today, you've got Facebook still leading. It's the first social media platform, so that's why it still has the most users on the platform. When we're talking about advertising, this is the traditional platform that started social media advertising. A brand looked at social media and said, I don't believe in putting my ads into a platform that people use to share their family birthdays. Why would I do that? But as the user base grew, that's when you have the most eyeballs, what they call eyeballs or impressions, on a platform. This is where you're going to get more engagement than you would on that billboard on the side of the street. So Facebook is the largest one, then followed by YouTube. Then if we look down, we got WhatsApp and WeChat. Those are global, so those are other countries. You've got Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, and Twitter. As you see here, Instagram and Facebook are one of the largest ones, but TikTok is growing, as you guys know. We'll talk a little bit about how that changes where you should be spending your money. And feel free to stop me at any time. I can usually talk about this stuff for a long time, so. So what's happening today is you've got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, even Twitter, because Twitter started pretty early on. But what's changing is that companies are now pivoting to channels that are more, I guess you would say disruptors, modern, right? But also less saturated, right? You guys saw that all of these 4 ones, actually LinkedIn wasn't even on the top 10. All of these 4 ones are not the top in amount of people on these platforms. People go to these platforms because they really like what's on that platform, content-wise. So they're very niche. If you can find your market on one of these platforms, you're gonna get more bang for your buck than trying to compete for anything on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. It's pretty saturated. And also the ad spend is usually cheaper, but we'll kind of go into that. But in general, I think you'll want to start to build a social media marketing strategy relatively soon, only because the costs of digital marketing are going up. When I started in social media ads, this $750 was actually $250, meaning CPM is cost per thousand times that someone has seen your ad. So it could be the same person seeing it 1,000 times. It's still going to say you paid $750 for it. But back in, I think it was 2016, you're paying about $250 for that, whereas now you're paying almost 4x, and it will increase. So the good thing about social media marketing is that it's low barriers to entry, right? You have a computer, you have maybe some photos, you have a little bit of a tagline, and then you can put an ad up. But it's good to start to build that social media marketing strategy today, so that when the costs do scale and grow, you've got it built in place, and it'll grow with your business. But these costs change across different platforms. For example, Twitter has the cheapest one at 38 cents. The ads on Twitter are all text-based. You've got maybe a photo, it's not as interactive. You can have some videos, but it's very cheap because someone's scrolling through Twitter very quickly, and it's not as much engagement, right? You're going there to read something, maybe even talk to somebody. So that's why it's a cheaper CPM. So if you have something like a tagline, or you have a message that you want to get out, Twitter is a really great place to just quickly add that, put a little bit of money into it, and then see how it performs. Actually, I swapped the photo here, but there's actually another platform called Pinterest. Does anyone know what Pinterest is?
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of people. So Pinterest is essentially a social media platform that is really used for, think about, when you're creating a vision board, outside of, a computer, you're physically taking pictures and putting them onto your wall. Pinterest is used for that. Yeah, of course. And then you can do that socially. So Pinterest is the most expensive platform to advertise on, because if someone is looking on Pinterest, they're using it as their personal vision board. They see your photo of maybe a house, right? They think it's an organic photo. They're not going to differentiate between saying, when they click on it, it says, Rodrigo, Suerte Felipe, contact me. They're going to click on it and say, wow, this house is beautiful. Let me add it to my board. And it becomes a part of their engagement on the social media platform. Here, when you're using Pinterest, not Instagram, it's really good to have good visuals, good photos, but you will be paying a little bit more. So as I talk through these, usually the best way to have a social media marketing strategy is have a mix of a little bit of these platforms. Facebook, I think the main thing to call out here is, Meta and Facebook are doing really well. They're probably the largest proponent of social media marketing platforms that are increasing their price because they can. And the amount of people that are on their platform only grows. So you'll always have that cost. And then YouTube is the second highest CPM compared to Pinterest here. You're paying at $10 CPM, but videos do really well. I mean, that's the main thing, is that you're going to be paying for really engaged users. But in comparison to the other social media platforms, if you've watched a YouTube video, who's skipped an ad? Most people have skipped an ad. So think about that when you're doing your video advertising on YouTube, right? You want to make the beginning, the first 1 to 2 seconds, as grabbing, gripping, or just get your message done in 1 to 2 seconds. So ads skip around 3 to 5 seconds for YouTube. So balance that out with whatever video you're making, whatever photo, and how much you're willing to pay. So I'm going to dip into a couple of the platforms that are trending today and why. Snapchat is trending, mostly because of how well it's doing compared to TV. It's actually really interesting that commercials won't be replaced. Not everyone's going to switch over to their phone and not have direct TV. But people who are on Snapchat remember the video ads that they see way more than people who are watching commercials. The other flip side to that, though, is you're going to be getting a younger demographic, right? So if you want a younger demographic and you want them to remember you as a realtor or you as a brand or yourself, Snapchat is a great place for young groups. It's middle tier price, but you're going to want to invest in videos and this type of landscape or portrait video, right? You're not going to want to have your videos like that. So we're talking a little bit more about like creatives and what format. Going through a bunch. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
No. I have a question.
Sure.
So I have Facebook and Instagram, and I know that if I post something on Instagram, it'll go to Facebook or Facebook to Instagram. So is it redundant to have them both the same? Because their audience is kind of different. So if they're going to be, Audra's posting the same thing that she did on Instagram, what is your take on it?
No, that's a great question. So Instagram and Facebook, you're right, have different demographics. And it's actually a plus that Meta owns both, right? So they have that integration and then you do less work. So I wouldn't say it's redundant, actually. I think it's actually smart that you have it turned on.
To make sure I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot and I can't keep up. So I just do Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I kind of want to do TikTok a little, but I'm a little afraid.
And
I'm gonna try.
yeah. We definitely want her to try.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of arguments for TikTok, people joining TikTok today. We'll actually talk about at the end platforms and tools that you can use to automate social media posting and campaigns. And it's relatively, I would say it's kind of like you would spend the amount of time to put into your planner or your calendar, you would just do that in the tool. So we'll talk about that. But I talked a little bit about Pinterest. I already talked about how much it costs. And actually I talked about this as well. People on Pinterest have high intent. They already know what they're looking for, so if they see a photo, they're more than likely going to click on your ad. And then TikTok. So TikTok is interesting. It's a little bit of an enigma for digital advertising because you have a lot of people spending a lot of time on TikTok. 6% of users spend 10 plus hours per week on TikTok, and they generate almost about 50% of the ad revenue.
Wow.
So 6% of the users generate 50% of ad revenue from TikTok. So you've got a really concentrated base. So I worked with Fox, so actually one of the brands that I support is Fox News. Fox News is very similar. You've got a very small percentage of users who support Fox News heavily. So this is an interesting social media platform to use, but it does mean that when you're advertising on TikTok, you have a lot of people who are spending time watching those videos compared to YouTube, right? They're used to skipping. If your video is interesting and engaging, they'll watch it, even if it is an ad. And that's what's different about TikTok. It feels organic, similar to Snapchat, but you've got more people willing to spend time on TikTok. Rather than Snapchat, it's a little bit more social. Young people use it to send messages between each other. Cool. Have a couple more things to share with you guys, but I think the main things, if you guys were to walk away today, I know I talked about social media marketing platforms, costs, all that fun stuff. I think the main thing that you can take away are there's two things that you already have that you can use for effective social media marketing and campaigns and targeting. So the way that digital marketing works is that your computer, your phone, your TV, all have a digital ID associated to it. It doesn't have your name, it doesn't have your personal information. It's this long 25 character number ID that stays on your computer, stays on your phone, and stays on your TV. But what happens is as you browse throughout the internet, you visit Home Depot, you visit Lowe's, you visit wherever you're trying to go, that information follows that ID. And then other social media platforms know that you visited those sites. And this is how you are like, oh my God, I just looked at Macy's bag and now it's following me on Twitter. What's going on? That's on purpose. And that's different about social media advertising compared to the traditional advertising today. But the main thing to know about that is something you can use to your advantage. If you know that maybe you're going to be selling a house that is high-end luxury, or maybe cost-friendly, needs to be fixed up, as long as you think of brands' interests that correlate with whatever you're selling, you can go into those social media marketing platforms and create targeting, what they call it. Basically what it is you go into those platforms, you say, I want to target people who like Viking, all the high luxury end brands for a house. And then those people who visited those sites, who've ever purchased something from that company, who's shown interest, watched the video, there's so many touch points that tell us about this person. Their ID of that device goes into a list. And that's how when you go onto social media, you'll be shown that ad. So that's something called interest targeting. Just try to match it up with whatever you're selling. Kind of think through brands, interests that may align with whatever it is you're trying to advertise. And then you go onto these platforms and you create an ad and kind of let that campaign go. So that's interest-based targeting. But the one that is, I think something that's even easier is you guys probably already have an existing email list. somewhere on your computer, even on paper. It's good to transpose that and put that into a CSV. Just the list of emails, because every social media platform for marketing, you can take that list, push it into that social media platform, and then it will find users that are like your existing customer base. You've already talked to them, and it's all email based, which is also very creepy, right? Like, if I give my email to Facebook, it'll find an email that is probably my friend. And then it will say, okay, great, these are the people you've already collected a email for, you sold a house to. It looks like these people over here look like you. I'm gonna show you that ad. So this is kind of like the easiest way to get into something that's a little bit more targeted and focused. You already have those emails. You need to pick a social media platform to market on, and then take that list and put it into social media.
That's how they get the people you may know when they suggest friends to you. Like, they know who you've been talking to. Like, how do they just know?
It's, where is it?
I'll meet somebody the next day, they'll show up on Facebook. You may know, like, how did he know I just
Yeah, it's not a coincidence at all.
Yeah.
It's, they say like 5 degrees of separation, right? Or maybe even less now with technology. And it's also geolocated. All of us in this room today, we've shared something which is coordinates. So when we walk away today, we might see the same ad. And that's because we're all in the same location. If we have the same interests, let's say I don't know, I'm interested in lunch, having
Italian food?
Yes, Italian food, there we go. And maybe some people are interested in Italian food as well in this room. Since we've shared the same coordinates, it's very likely that we'll see a Maggiano's ad later tonight somewhere on social media. So it's not a coincidence at all. Like it's very technical, and they found ways to make it so that advertising is personalized. And that's the trend going forward. And I would say to kind of jump on, these two things that I ended with are kind of the way to ease into that. You already have, you can kind of match, and you know interests, you know brands, way better than I do for companies or for houses that you guys are selling. So those are the two techniques. So this is called retargeting. The other one is called interest-based targeting. And yeah, please.
So we've been hearing a lot about geofencing and about how it works. Like, so we've been meeting like this. What would be the best way to geofence just this group? Is there a way to do that? Is there a company really hired to do something like that? Like, we go to an event, we want every agent that's at that event to get an ad from our escrow company. How would we accomplish that? Because I've been looking for something like that. There's not very many people know how to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So I used to work in an agency before Fox, and there's a couple of small companies that do that.
They do, okay.
They do. So I'll sync up with you later.
Excellent.
I'll find that in. But
The example you said, like, you're all interested in Italian food, for example, and all of a sudden you're seeing Maggiano's restaurant advertising. So is Maggiano marketing, picking up on social media? That's why they are.
that's exactly right. And that's how you know which companies are actually spending on social media, because you visited them and then they get you back. So yeah, if we all see Maggiano's later, they're advertising on social media.
Is that the same also when you apply for rewards, membership, to all those companies?
That's, yes. So what I'm talking about here is when you apply for rewards, you give your email. Email is one of the most important, in advertising space, email is kind of like the passport ID, right? It's one of those things that you're more than likely not going to change. And even if you do, you'll probably willingly give your email again, right? It's something that it follows you, whereas your computer, it could break tomorrow, right? And then all that information on what you've been browsing on that computer, it's not pertinent to that advertisement anymore. You get a new computer, you have to do it again. Same thing with your phone. So, but your email, it will follow you. So that's exactly right. Rewards and all that stuff really is a way to get your email address, and then they'll use it. Use it for retargeting, exactly. Trying to make their marketing more efficient. And these are Google slides, so I'll sync up with Rod so you guys can have these later on. But kind of banking off of retargeting, this is a little bit more complex. And this is where I would say that if you wanted to do this and it is really effective, you definitely need some help. But with retargeting, you can actually retarget across multiple social media platforms. Meaning, maybe I go to Facebook, I see your ad for a house, then maybe 2 hours later I go to Twitter, I'll see that ad again. And that's called cross social media platform retargeting. It is literally because it's following you. It's saying there's logic that's built into these campaigns that say, if this user has seen this ad on Facebook, I want you to show it to them on Twitter. I want you to show it to them on X social media platform. But in this strategy, you'll be spending more money on multiple platforms. That's one thing, and then a little bit more money on someone helping you build these logics in place. So it's a little bit more complex. But I would say this is kind of like what you could move into after that first initial retargeting, building your email list and pushing that into social media platforms. And yes, so I'm going to end on some tools. Hootsuite is actually one of the first tools for social media management, and they've been the leader ever since. They automate posting and campaigns, and they've got a free plan. It's just interesting to play around with. I think if you're already posting, more than a couple times a week, and you already have those photos lined up, even if you don't, right? I would go into Hootsuite, just check it out. You can literally, it's kind of like scheduling emails, if you've ever done that, right? So you go in there, you upload your photo, you upload the words, whatever you're gonna say, you put it on a day and you say schedule. And then the great thing about that is your social media presence can be automated to a certain extent. Actually something that when I work with small brands, they actually hire people either abroad or just consulting to manage this once they feel comfortable. And it's something that you don't need to worry about. It's once you've kind of found someone that you can trust, you have some photos, all you need to do is continue to take photos. You guys have houses coming up and you just get that photo over to them, or you just go into this platform. Lumi is similar. Lumi, the only difference between Lumi and Hootsuite is when you're posting organically, right? You're not paying for ads. But Hootsuite also allows you to manage ad campaigns, so it's a combination. And then Lumi is more for just scheduling posts. So if you want to just not have to think about posting 3 times a week, you have all of those things. You can grab Lumi or Hootsuite, both are good. Some options for tools. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Okay, the Hootsuite or the Lumi, because I use Prospecting and I also use other CRM systems for doing stuff. Like Shrinkage right now I'm actually managing myself. Would I be able to cross or integrate those systems into
Yes, you would. And what is the tool for CRM that you use?
For the CRM, I use Salesforce, but I also have Prospect in for LinkedIn, automatic generating the posts, not posts, but generating new connections.
Right.
And I also have Padua. It's the same thing. It's part of the same thing in WildXC.
Oh, okay, cool.
So am I able to integrate that into one of those Hootsuite and stuff? Because that way I can just automate that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So Hootsuite has the most integrations. It's the tool that's been there the longest. They definitely would have Salesforce. I would be surprised if they didn't have the one for LinkedIn. You'll probably find some that maybe they don't have an integration with, but hopefully Salesforce would hopefully manage most of your.
So I'll go with Hootsuite. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So when we look for a person like you, what's the title that we need to look for?
Social media manager. Was anything with social media in the title really? Most of it is us managing either your organic posts, if you're looking for someone to manage your ads. Social media buyer is usually what it's called. And there's a lot of, what's a good one? Fiverr. Fiverr has a lot of great options. I've actually used them. I actually do photography for real estate. So I use them for doing my own social media marketing. And Fiverr is pretty affordable. You can actually find someone who can help you out, probably for, like, how much do I pay mine?
Does Rod use you? Rod, your tito?
For social media marketing?
Yeah?
I'm busy.
It's so expensive.
I'm busy now, yeah. It's a good question.
So we can use you then.
I can give some tips on who to help, but yeah, Fox is keeping me busy for sure.
So when I was with my other real estate office, Audra JH, right? And they would do our marketing for social media for us. I would get all these trolls who would talk crap about my listings. Oh, well, you have a pool? Wow. I would hate to have to pay for that water bill. You know, stupid crap like that.
Yeah.
Do you get those too? Or, I mean, how do you get rid of these trolls who just like,
Block them. Just block them. Easy
that's
as
the
that.
only way. They're
Yeah.
all over the place.
Just
right?
block them. Yeah. No energy for that.
I mean, there's two schools of thought, right? Any publicity is bad, is good publicity,
Yeah.
right? Or on those social media platforms, there's an option to stop comments.
Yeah.
You really want to avoid bad press and you don't want to deal with those guys, but usually they're mostly comments. I mean, they can be kind of rude.
And I'm just wondering if they came with the people who promoted it, or they just followed me, because when I promote my stuff, I don't get that. That's what I'm wondering, is where did they would come on to all my posts before, but when I do it myself, I don't get that. So is it the list they're getting?
It sounds like the target.
Probably.
It might be more broad, maybe you were targeting someone,
Yeah.
right? If you're promoting your post, that's usually using your own social network and then extending it a little bit. When you're doing ads, it's usually dipping into, demographic areas. Like demographic area of Beverly Hills. I'm sure a percentage of them are trolls, yeah. You can't avoid that, so.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Thank you.